it had completely encased my pituitary gland, was in the crosshairs of the optic nerve, and had begun pressing against my carotid artery. To which point, we would find out that I had at most 6 months to live if
Whoa.
this thing was not removed. My mom and dad walked with me back as they rolled me in the bed to the operating room. I say now, man, that if I knew what was going to happen, I don't know that I could have ever allowed them to push me through that door.
Mm.
And I don't know that I could have ever stopped staring at the faces of my mom and dad to soak it all in.
Hey, this is a quick shout out from one of our awesome sponsors. Check this out. Check out this awesome video on this brand new product called Tornado Wind Turbine.
Tornado, foldable micro wind turbine, has a vertical axis of rotation. Battery, generator, and 2 USB chargers are placed in the turbine. Savonius rotor with booster dome, top mounted. Turbine Tornado is compact and can be taken with you on a trip. Assembly and installation take only a few minutes. Tornado captures the wind's power and converts it into electricity. The built-in battery is efficiently charged by the wind. Built-in 12,000 milliamp hours battery is wind charged efficiently. Tornado folds up quickly and easily and charges 2 devices at the same time. Tornado Turbine is your reliable companion. 1/4 inch standard thread allows the use of accessories.
Make sure you check out Tornado Wind Turbine on their Indiegogo page in the link below. Kevin, you're an entrepreneur, purpose-driven coach. You're the host of Grit, Grace, and Inspiration podcast and so much more. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, I am super stoked to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. And you're being a guest on your show, by the way. You have one of the most amazing podcasts that I've ever been on. I've been a guest on over 200 podcasts since I started this thing, man. And you are by far one of the best guests or best hosts that I've ever been able to talk to you, man. So I appreciate you.
Oh, well, that means a lot. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. I like to start my shows off by going back a bit, back to the beginning. Like, where did you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
Yeah, so I had a really awesome childhood. So I grew up in same town I live now, Ormond Beach, Florida, which is right next to Daytona. So we're talking like East Central Florida. And I had a great childhood. It was, back in 80s, 90s. And so, we were actually kids who were outside. And, I grew up, a big thing for me in my childhood was riding dirt bikes.
Okay.
And I got my first dirt bike when I turned 4 years old. It had training wheels on it. And
Love it.
And my family says that I would be riding around the yard, a training wheel would hit like an ant pile, and I'd go flipping over.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And but yeah, man, so childhood, it was really great. I was blessed with really amazing family, terrific parents. They got divorced when I was in 2nd grade, but handled it better than any parents I've ever heard of. And so it was a really good childhood. Yeah.
Nice, man. I'm always interested in my guest journey with Jesus. Like, when did you decide to give your life to Jesus, and what was it that prompted you to step into that relationship?
So that all is thanks to my Nana. So my mom's mom, and Nana is, sweet little Southern Baptist. And the only times that I would really go to church was, sometimes when I would spend the night on the weekend over at her house, and I'd get up Sunday morning and go with her to her, Southern Baptist, church. And that was really, the only influence I really had. And then, the rest was just through my grandmother. And really, it was about the time of 6th grade. And so 6th grade, I started middle school. And with the change in times, and my older sister, my mom would drop my sister off at high school. And so she would have to drop me off at my grandparents' house. And my Nana would then take me to middle school that started much later. And
Gotcha.
so it was during the same time that my Nana, she signed up for a program at her church called, I think it was called like the Faith Program.
Okay.
And it was something totally out of her realm, something she never would have done, but for some reason she was compelled to sign up for it. And so every morning she would quiz me on whatever test I had that day. And then I would help her study in this little faith booklet. And so
Okay.
we'd sit in the living room. Well, by the end of that program, by the end of her finally getting the whole little book nailed down, I remember we were going through it, and all of a sudden though, I realized she wasn't just reciting the stuff, she was talking to me.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, I remember sitting on the couch and her walking across the living room and her getting down on her knees in front of me. And right there, I accepted Jesus into my life as my
Come
Lord
on.
and Savior.
Come on, man.
One of the best days of my life.
Yeah.
One of the
Wow.
best days of my life. And after that, I mean, it wasn't like I was saved and then, whew, I'm going to church every weekend and
Sure.
not going boating.
Yeah, yeah,
You
right?
know.
Yeah.
But honestly, that was and still is the greatest gift that I have ever been given.
Man, I love that. Grandmas are so awesome, man. They're so awesome. I grew up, my dad's mom, she turns 90 in about a month from now. And man, just out there, like super active and loves to speak and just love on people. And I believe it's her prayer since I was a kid that I'm the way that I am today, and has gotten me through, the stuff that I went through. But it was all from prayers of her. And man, yeah, she's 4 foot 8, 9-ish, somewhere in there. My grandpa was like 6'2", 6'3", he was a big dude. And they gave birth to 6 kids, 54 grandkids, great grandkids, great, all that stuff. So just amazing legacy that this woman has now left us, and still, out there, and we'll get to celebrate 90 years here in another month or so, man. But man, grandmas are special for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, in 2003, you were a junior in high school. You had this life-changing event. Can you share your story? What happened there?
Yeah. So, yep. So I was just started my junior year of high school.
Okay.
So I went to Seabreeze High School.
Nice.
Literally was across the street from the beach. And,
Wow.
yeah. And, it was, I always say it was like the scene in the movie, when you're watching a movie and things are going great, and at any point you're waiting to be scared because something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And that was kind of life.
Mm.
I had, when I turned 16 the year before, I had got literally my dream truck. It was a 96 Ford F-150 4x4.
Come on.
Yeah, 8 inches of lift and 38-inch TSL Super Swampers. And
Love it, dude.
yeah, dude, she was amazing. And so junior year, things are going great. And I had really finally found like a really awesome group of friends. And life was going good. And at the same time, though, I had been being plagued by some medical issues. And at the time, we didn't even consider them quote unquote medical issues. They were just some things that were odd.
Sure.
One thing was I wasn't growing.
Mm.
I was, at 17 years old, I was only 5'3".
Mm.
I hadn't gone through puberty yet. I had migraine headaches all the time. All these things, and I went though to the best pediatrician in our town, and he kept telling, my mom, me, he's just a late bloomer. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Well, finally, around the time of beginning of junior year, turning 17, my mom and grandmother, they finally decided enough is enough. And so they got me in with a new, just normal family doctor, not a pediatrician. And so I went in, and first appointment with that doctor, he pulled my mom out into the hallway and he told her, he said, listen, he said, I don't know what is wrong. He said, but something's not right. He's like, I want you to get to an endocrinologist as soon as you can.
Mm.
And so that was the first domino to fall. We would end up booking an appointment with an endocrinologist an hour away over in Orlando, Florida. And in his office, he's like, well, he said it so just plain and matter of fact. He's like, oh, he's like, well, I expect that you have a brain tumor.
Wow.
It's like, what?
Wow. Yeah.
And sure enough, about a week would go by, and my mom was It was a Friday evening. My mom was actually driving in her car. She was actually headed to meet me and my stepdad and stepbrother at our boat that we were taking up the intercoastal waterway to St. Augustine, Florida for the weekend. One of my favorite trips we would take. And
Mhm.
my mom's in the driving and she gets a call and it's from the doctor. And he asks if she's driving, which she said yes, and to which he asked if she, could please pull over. And she did, and he let her know that it was worse than he could have expected.
Mm.
Matter of fact, he had on the line the leading pediatric neurosurgeon in the country, and they were ready to book an appointment because the MRI came back and that sure enough, I had a brain tumor.
Wow.
Um, Thankfully we would find out that it was non-cancerous, thank goodness, but
Mm.
it was big. It was compared to the size of a plum,
Wow.
basically right in the center of my brain. So it had completely encased my pituitary gland,
Mm.
was in the crosshairs of the optic nerve, and had begun pressing against my carotid artery.
Wow.
To which point we would find out that I had at most 6 months to live if
Whoa.
this thing was not removed.
Yeah.
And so we would be in the office of this leading pediatric neurosurgeon, and he let us know. He's like, listen, he's like, it's not a big deal. He's like, I do these all the time. And he told me, he's like, Kevin, he's like, you'll be out of school for about 3 to 4 weeks. You will have to stay off of your brand new four-wheeler for 6 months, which I thought was totally ridiculous.
Sure.
And yeah, and so I at the time, just to give you a little sense of my personality and sense of humor, I immediately named my tumor Bob the Tumor.
Okay.
And so literally my family before surgery, we had a huge going away Bob party. And
Wow. That's awesome, dude.
yeah,
Whoa.
yes.
So cool.
So we did that, and surgery was October 28th, 2003. That was
Mm.
surgery day. I was checked in at Arnold Palmer Children's Hospital the day before. That morning comes and the doctor comes into the room, and apparently I crack a joke, ask him, hey, did you eat your Wheaties this morning? And which he laughed, and he was ready to go. And my whole family was there. I told you that my parents got divorced when I was in second grade. Well,
Mm.
the awesome thing about my family is that it's as if there is no separation when
Mm.
times matter.
Yep.
And so both sides of the family, everybody's there. My mom and dad walked with me back as they rolled me in the bed to the operating room. And I say now, man, that if I knew what was going to happen, I don't know that I could have ever allowed them to push me through that door.
Mm.
And I don't know that I could have ever stopped staring at the faces of my mom and dad to soak it all in.
Yeah.
Because literally, once I went through the operating room, everything in my life changed.
Mm.
Um, the doctor would come out after the very long surgery and tell my family that, hey, he's like, we are done. Surgery, total success. He's like, the tumor was removed. Everything is great. And so, okay, awesome. Well, about maybe a day or two after, when I started really starting to wake up, and I was apparently turned into like the Incredible Hulk. I had a lot of sodium issues, and so I was ripping everything off of me and
Whoa.
whatnot. And they had one of those pulse ox machines that they put on like your finger or toe.
Yep.
Well, apparently I just kept ripping it off. And so at this particular time, my mom's in the room with the head nurse, and it was just the two of them. And he said to me, he's like, Kevin, he's like, you got to stop, ripping this off. He's like, do you see this blinking red light that was on the little pulse ox? To which my mom said, I said, no, it's just black.
Mm.
At which point he looked at her and she looked at him, and he walked over and he hit the light switch on and off, on and off. Kevin, do you see this light? Do you see this? No, it's just black. That would be the moment when the world would stop spinning for me and my entire family. I was left completely blind in both eyes, no shape, shadows, no light perception whatsoever. I would end up remaining in the ICU for 2 weeks, with everything going wrong. I'd come out of the hospital not only losing my eyesight, but also my ability to smell. I had short-term memory loss for 6 months.
Wow.
Everything in life changed. Everything in just an instant.
Crazy, man. Wow.
Yeah.
What and I
Yeah.
mean, I'm glad that you're here today, but what a journey that you had to go through to get to where you're at today.
Yeah.
I can imagine there's probably some mental battles that happened when for you when that first happened. How did you experience that, or how did you get through that, the mental battles part of that?
Um, the biggest thing is I I clung to my faith
Mm,
and my family.
yeah.
Um, I credit my faith and my family are the only reason I'm here today.
Wow.
Because I would go to bed every single night and I would literally go to sleep sobbing into my pillow, praying, begging God, begging him to just heal me, to let me wake up in the morning and be able to see again.
Mhm.
And yet every morning I would wake up and I'd open my eyes and I'd see the same thing that I did when they were closed.
Mm. Wow.
And it was so hard. And the first, year or so was nothing more than pure survival mode.
Mm.
We were dealing with so many new medical complications that I had, related to now that I have like no pituitary. So now I'm taking all these medications that we're trying to get straight and dealing with just all the different side effects. And it was really rough for a long time.
Mm.
And but it was always my faith that was there. And I like to say more than just faith is a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mom, I always like to share one story is my mom said that she asked me one morning, she said, Kevin, she said, who is it that you talk to? She said, every night when you go to bed, I hear you in your bedroom talking. And she said, I just said, plain as day, oh, I talk to Jesus because he's always there with me.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was it, man.
Mm.
And it took a long time before I could learn how to love life again, even if I couldn't see it.
Mhm.
It was a heck of a journey that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
Wow, man. What would you say today is your message to the world?
That you are so much stronger, more resilient, more awesome than you could ever think.
Mm.
Um, Nobody can think that they could handle it. I would
Yeah.
tell you that there's no way I could handle it. But yet we find a way. And the other message I would love to tell people is you can't do it alone.
Mhm.
And I often say that for those who don't believe in God, I don't know how they do it. Same thing with people who don't have family support. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I don't. Because those two things have been my bedrock from the beginning.
Mm. Yeah. Man. Now, I was reading on your website, read something pretty interesting. You've spoken about using echolocation to navigate. Like, how has that impacted your daily life, man?
Oh, dude, that is crazy amazing. So it would be 14 years after becoming blind.
Okay.
that I would learn about echolocation. Now, before this, I mean, I learned to get around with a, white cane and basically see things, when I can touch them.
Sure.
Well, echolocation, I learned about these guys who were training other blind people how to use echolocation, just like a bat or dolphin uses.
Wow.
And so, long story short, I ended up going out to Los Angeles, California for a week. And I trained one on one with a guy named Brian Bushway. Me and him are still really good friends today. And it wasn't like any special laboratory technology. No, literally, my mom and sister, they would drop me off at his house each morning. They would go and do tourist stuff. And me and Brian, we would start just working in his house or walking around the neighborhood. Now, Brian is also completely blind,
Wow.
but yeah, now he, though, taught me how to see through sound. And the scientific part of it is that basically over time, which it took 3 days before it actually clicked, was that I began to retrain my brain's visual cortex to see through sound rather than sight. And so literally it's done by making a little tongue click with your tongue against the roof of your mouth,
Okay.
which then is my brain, that sound bounces off of the objects around me, comes back, I hear it, brain interprets that into an acoustic image to the point that I can literally see now, just in a whole new way. Um, I remember it was the third day of training, and day one and day two, dude, they sucked. They were the guy, he's telling me that I'm supposed to be making this clicking noise that I couldn't make. I'm supposed to be seeing stuff that I can't see. It was so mentally fatiguing. It was insane.
Yeah.
Third day of training, though, is when it all came together. And ironically, before I went out there, he told me that most people get it on day 3.
Okay.
And sure enough, dude, that day, instead of me going to his house, he actually came to the Airbnb apartment we were staying in. My mom and sister left for the day, and me and him, we started working inside. And he was teaching me how to identify corners of the room. And so I would literally stand like face to face with the wall, and I'd make the clicking noise, and then I'd keep backing up and making the noise, backing up, backing up. All of a sudden, dude, it was like somebody turned on a light switch.
Wow.
Literally, all of a sudden, I could see the wall in front of me. It was like this fuzzy gray color. And I literally could walk from across the room up to it, never touch it, walk alongside of it. And then it was like this dark, deep opening. Well, that was the doorway into the kitchen. That moment changed my life forever. And
Wow.
I remember going to bed that night, and I remember laying in bed, and I remember saying to God, I'm like, I've been asking you to let me see for 14 years. And today you did it just in a whole new way.
Man.
And it's changed my life. I mean, today my world is no longer just black. It has dimension, it has shape. And the echolocation, it's kind of like a muscle. The more you use it, the better it gets. And so I
Yeah.
mean, there's times today, all these years later, where I mean, all of a sudden I'll just be in my kitchen, and with like my mom and sister, we'll be in there cooking, and maybe it's because of the water faucet hitting a plate a certain way. It's like a light switch turns on. I can see literally their figures. I can
Wow.
see the knobs on the cabinets, everything.
Come on.
It's amazing,
That
dude.
is amazing. Man, I
Yes.
love dude, your story is so powerful, man. Such an awesome journey you've been on, dude. I want to jump into your podcast real quick before we end here. You have an
Yes.
amazing podcast, Grit, Grace, Inspiration, which is ranked in the top 2% globally, dude. Congratulations, man. That's awesome. And
Thank you.
you've had a few different versions of your podcast over the years. Why did you decide to start this podcast? What's the message that you are, I guess, what's the journey that you take your listeners on in this podcast?
Yeah, dude. So reason I started the whole podcast is way different than it is today. I started it as an alternative to a YouTube channel
Okay.
because which I thought was super lame.
Okay.
But I realized being a blind guy and filming stuff for YouTube was going to be a little difficult. So I switched to a podcast, which, as I said, I thought that was a super lame, poor alternative until I started podcasting and I realized the power of audio.
Yeah.
And I realized I'm like, Kevin Lowe, you were designed for the world of audio. And
I agree.
yeah,
That's awesome.
and so over, a little bit of time, this was a 2020 pandemic quarantine project, and the podcast quickly took over my life.
Yeah.
I had been working as a travel agent and for 7 years, and podcasts started going, and man, it led me down a road that I never saw coming, and that's what's amazing.
Uh,
So after a couple of rebrands, we're where we are today of grit, grace, and inspiration with a whole goal that I can reach somebody on the other side of the world, that they can hear something that I say or my guest says, and that it can remind them, you know what? If they can do it, so can I.
yeah.
And so they keep going a little bit further, a little bit longer, giving tomorrow another chance. And that's the mission. It's just there to inspire people, empower them, to lift them up, be an encouragement, and maybe make people laugh and see life in a little bit different view.
Come on, man. Dude, you have such a great podcast, dude. And podcasting is amazing. It's opened up so many doors of amazing friendships and relationships and partnerships and collaborations. And for me, and I don't know if we talked about this on your show or not, but like for me, I look at podcasting as a legacy. Like I wish that I could go back 3-4 generations deep and hear my great grandfather's story from him,
Yes.
right? And see his face and hear it from him. So it's not passed down, right? But now I can't do that, but I can do that for future generations down my tribe, right? They can go, man, great grandpa Erik was a bad mamma jamma, and he had some amazing guests on his podcast, right? Like that's the legacy that I want to leave, right? Oh,
Absolutely.
so good. Now I know we're running right up on time. I'm a big music guy, so I've asked the question: like, is there a favorite band for you? What type of music do you like to listen to?
I am somebody who I love all different kinds of genres. I
Yeah,
mean, I am all about old school Fleetwood Mac
nice.
to modern day country. I mean, somebody asked me the other day, like, they're like, I need 2 of your favorite songs. And I'm like, that's impossible.
Yeah, I
I'm
couldn't do that
like,
either.
so yeah, man, I love all different kinds of music.
Yeah.
Probably my biggest is, I'm a kid. It seems like most of my playlists they revolve around the 90s. So
Yes. Yeah. So
yeah,
good, man. Kevin,
yeah.
this was absolutely life-changing. You're an absolute world changer, brother. And man, it's such an honor to have you on my show. Your story, your message needs to be heard, and you are changing lives with your podcast, with your life, with your coaching, man. People need to check you out. Thank you so much for your time today, man. I appreciate you.
Oh man, I appreciate you so much, dude. Thank you.
Hey, if you've ever thought about starting a podcast but unsure where to go, you need to go check out erikallenmedia.com. Click on the resources tab there. I will walk you through how to start, launch, and run a podcast. I've recorded over 500 interviews since 2017, and I want to help you launch your podcast. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you catch every show when I drop them. Thanks again. Keep changing the world.